It's the time of the Passover. The whole family is getting this table ready for the Seder feast. Well, everyone except Luna. She's a little grumpy because she doesn't know why she has to eat all these weird foods that come from different animals and food that looks like giant crackers.
Daddy, why we gotta eat this weird stuff? It's not nachos or corn dogs.
We have to eat this stuff, honey. It's so we can remember the Passover.
The what?
Pesach, or Passover, is a Jewish holiday that remembers the day God led his people to freedom.
Freedom from what?
From Egypt.
I still don't get it. What? What does Egypt have to do with this? What do all these yucky foods have to do with it? Why are we celebrating a Jewish holiday if we are Christians? Why is this so confusing?
Easy, sweetheart. We're going to explain all this to you slowly so you can understand.
It all began a few thousand years ago. The Hebrew people lived in the land of Goshen, along with the Egyptians. They lived there because of a promise made between the Pharaoh and a man named Joseph, the son of Jacob, the grandson of Isaac, the great-grandson of Abraham, the forefather. We'll explain the history of that another time.
They lived alongside really well a couple years, until one day the Pharaoh died and a new Pharaoh was appointed. That Pharaoh didn't know Joseph or what he did, and he feared the Hebrews' numbers, so he had all of them enslaved.
Oh no!
Yeah, it was miserable. He had them work in the hot sun, make their buildings, do their labor for no pay whatsoever. And on top of that, they were given poor living conditions and barely got to eat.
And they had to endure that stuff for 400 years.
And if that wasn't horrible enough, the Pharaoh also ordered for all the Hebrew baby girls to live, but have all the baby boys thrown into the Nile River.
You mean they killed all those little babies?
Yes, it was very sad indeed. But thankfully, one family was slick enough to keep their child safe.
That baby was Moses.
Moses? Isn't that the guy who made the water flow?
Exactly. Although now you're gonna know the whole story.
You see, one day, Moses killed an Egyptian taskmaster for beating up another Hebrew. This got him into really big trouble, so he had to run away. He made his way to a land called Midian, where he married a girl named Zipporah, the daughter of Jethro the priest. There, he had 2 kids and lived the humble life of a shepherd for 40 years.
He was fairly comfortable there until one day, as he was tending to the flock, he saw something amazing. He saw a bush that was on fire, but it wasn't burning itself away. It was just there, still on fire.
But how?
Because that wasn't just some ordinary bush. That was God Himself who came down to talk to Moses.
God called to Moses, and Moses asked who he was. Then God said, "I am who I am." He explained that he was the God of his ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of everything, and explained to Moses that he has heard his people cry for freedom from their oppression, and that through Moses he was going to set his people free and give them the land he had promised their ancestors, the land of milk and honey.
Moses was scared at first. He wouldn't know where to begin, or even if his people would listen to him. Then God told him to do 2 things: to throw his staff on the ground, and it would turn into a snake, and to put his own hand into his shirt, and it would look disease-ridden, then be healed. These things would prove to the people that God really sent Moses.
But of course he was still hesitant. Words were always slow to Moses. So God told him to go to his brother Aaron, who would help him say what he needed to say.
So Moses listened to God and went back to Egypt to confront the Pharaoh at the time, Ramses. He told the Pharaoh that God had commanded him to let his people go.
And of course the Pharaoh said no, for he didn't know God.
Then Moses remembered what God told him to do. He gave his staff to his brother Aaron, and he threw it before the Pharaoh. Then it turned into a snake. This was to prove to them that God was really powerful.
But the Pharaoh wasn't impressed. He had his personal magicians perform a similar trick, although they didn't really turn their sticks into snakes like God did. It was just a cheap party trick.
And angered by their demands, the Pharaoh made a new decree. He told the taskmasters not to give them any more straw they needed to make bricks, but they had to gather the straw themselves. But they didn't get a reduction in the amount of bricks they needed to make, so the job became even harder for them.
This made the people angry at Moses, but Moses assured them that God would continue to make ways.
And that they did. God sent down 10 plagues upon Egypt. These plagues included turning their water into blood, flies, frogs, disease, all kinds of bad stuff. But God still hardened the Pharaoh's heart, and the Pharaoh didn't listen to them time after time.
Then finally, God told Moses that he was going to send his 10th and most devastating plague.
But before he did, God told the people to do these things.
On the 10th day of this month, every house was to take a spotless lamb and use its blood to paint the lintel and doorpost of every house. Then they were to cook this lamb by roasting it, and they had to eat it with only unleavened bread and bitter herbs, like the ones we have here. And then when God would send down this last plague, if God saw the blood on your doorpost, the plague would pass over you.
So the people did as they were instructed, and when the hour came, God sent his last plague down, the plague that every single firstborn of every child and livestock would be killed. So of course all the Hebrews' firstborns were safe, but not the Egyptians. Every single Egyptian household's firstborn of livestock and child was killed that night. Even the Pharaoh's only son was taken.
Only after this moment did God soften the Pharaoh's heart and let the people leave, for he didn't want to see them anymore, though he did change his mind again later.
And with that, the Hebrews were finally allowed to leave to the Promised Land. And after a series of being chased by Egyptians, walking through a sea, some problems at Mount Sinai, 40 years of walking to the desert, they finally made it to the land God promised them.
And that's why we celebrate Passover, to remember what God did for his people, and that he passed over their houses and spared them from the plague that finally set them free.
Oh, now I get it. But how is it important to Christians?
Well, mainly because that story is important to the entirety of the Bible. It's how the Hebrew people got the land of Israel.
And not just that, this holiday will be important to the story of how Jesus saved the world.
How?
We'll tell you right tomorrow.